Welcome to the first video in the Great Plains product maintenance video series. My name is Pierce Randall and I'm here with the 3S5000 HD, which is the 50-foot model of our hydraulic down pressure min-till line. Available in this line would be the 26-foot 2-section drill and the 30, 40, and 50-foot 3-section drills. We have both conventional and a HD model available, and the difference is going to be the size of the blade and the color of the opener. Whether you have a conventional drill or an HD drill, most of the maintenance points that we'll cover throughout this video series will be the same. What we're going to go through now are the different hydraulic down pressure row unit options that we have, as well as some of the wear items to keep an eye on if you're going to go through the drill before it's time to go to the field. The first thing to note is that what we're working with right now is a heavy-duty row unit, meaning that the frame is green and that we have a 15-inch blade. Also available is our conventional row unit, which has a black frame and a 13.5-inch blade. Whether you have a 13.5-inch blade or a 15-inch blade, we allow for 1 inch of acceptable wear. Another thing to take a look at is the spring that we have up front. With a conventional row unit, it's just going to be a black spring. With a heavy-duty row unit, you'll have a black spring with a green paint mark. And that signifies that it's a heavy-duty spring, meaning that we're about 28% heavier on the downforce of this row unit. The first thing we're going to go through now is what we call blade contact. We're going to start by taking 2 business cards or 2 pieces of paper and sliding one in between the blades from the top and then one up from the bottom as well. We want to measure that space there. That tells us how much side pressure we have holding the blades together. The specification that we use is between 1/2 inch and 1.5 inches. Okay, based off of this, we're at about 1 inch of blade contact, which means we're just in the right spot. Ideally, 3/4 of an inch is where we like to see it, but 1 inch is just fine. Now we can take the blade off. It's important to note as you take the blade off, keep an eye on the shims that are going to be under the head of the bolt and then also on the back side of the blade next to the bearing. We need to keep track of those so that when we go to reinstall everything, we use the right number of shims. These shims are used to set how deep the bolt goes into the nut bar. From here, we can go ahead and measure our blade. Like I said, we're working with a heavy-duty row unit, meaning that originally this was a 15-inch blade. Okay, we're at about 14.1/8 inch diameter, meaning we're still above the point of replacement, but we're getting pretty close. This would be a personal judgment based off the number of acres that you run. You might try to get another planting season out of these blades before replacement, or if you're a larger operator and you're going to put a lot of acres on these, you might just go ahead and replace them while you have it torn apart. We also want to do a visual inspection now that we have things taken apart. We have the nut bar here in the center, and we want to check our threads and make sure everything looks okay there. We also have the seed tube. We want to make sure that there's no cracks or breaks, and also that the retaining clip is still holding it in place. On the bottom of the seed tube, we want to check our seed flap and also the bottom of the seed tube in general to make sure that we're not starting to see any wear, which will pick this up, and that'll affect your seed placement in the bottom of the trench. Another thing to keep an eye on is the blade separator or the blade scraper. Now, whether you have one versus the other is dependent on where you are in the country and the conditions that you're running in. The blade separator is a wear item. Once it gets to a 1/4 inch wear, it's time for replacement. We also have a blade scraper, which mounts here on the rear, and it's just a little knockout bar that sits on the back side of the blade. We'll keep an eye on that and make sure there's no damage or premature wear. And as long as everything looks good there, we have adjustment in the bolts to make sure we're still getting a good contact. Another thing to take a look at with this row unit is the press wheel and the press wheel arm. Now you see in this bolt we have a bushing. So if you have a lot of side-to-side slop, it might be time to take a look at that and maybe do a replacement there. We also have a T-handle. We want to make sure that the spring and everything through a visual inspection looks okay. And when it comes to the press wheel itself, we have a bearing under this bolt. We want to make sure that everything spins freely and we don't have a bearing going out. We also want to stress the importance of using original OEM Great Plains Fresh Start parts to make sure that the original part quality and integrity that first went into the drill goes back into the drill after you do your rebuild.